What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another update video for the CW Flash fan game. Today we have a lot to talk about as we wrap up the development for episode 1 of the game. There have been a ton of updates to the game, so sit back and relax because this is probably going to be a long video. That being said, I think a lot of the work I've been doing on this game has actually been pretty interesting, and we'll be covering a lot of what I've been doing in detail, so if you're interested in game development, watch to the end because you might see some useful tools or things that I cover in the video that can be useful in your own projects. If you're new or just haven't done it already, hit the like and subscribe buttons down below because it helps out the channel and you don't want to miss an upload. I think they're pretty good videos, unbiased source confirmed. Alright, let's get into it. Starting off, let's talk about Central City and the setup for multiple worlds in the Flash game. I'm not sure how much I've actually covered in my previous videos about how I set this up, and I'm too lazy to go check, so we're just going to go over it really quickly now. The Flash game will have multiple worlds you can visit in regular gameplay, these being both tied to story events and also just open areas you can freely run around for the novelty of traveling the multiverse. There won't be much content in these other worlds aside from the main story, as much of the game's missions and side content are centered in Earth 1 Central City. But all that aside, isn't having multiple large open world areas in an indie fan game a lot of work, I hear you asking? That's a good question, but actually no it isn't. It would have been, but not anymore, because now we can generate large scale cities in a flash. So looking at Central City now, it's unrecognizable compared to what it looked like before, right? That's because before I was using a procedural generator that could produce buildings individually or a city all at once. It was a very versatile tool except for one problem. The city generation was randomized and you had very little control over the layout of the city it would generate. So I was using it to produce the buildings individually and manually placing them to produce my version of Central City in the layout I wanted. Unfortunately, that ran into issues that I should have seen coming a mile away, because as anyone familiar with Unreal Engine limitations can tell you, having that many instances of the generator all in the same scene at the same time is a big no-no for memory and started to lag Unreal to the point of absolute absurdity. My computer started running slower than a person with no legs and it actually crashed Unreal Engine a few times, so I considered just biting the bullet and using my procedural generator to make the city with a random layout, but then I realized I had another option. Deciding to choose door number 2, I realized I had a different procedural generator I could use in my Unreal library, one that I'd actually used previously to try and make Central City all the way back in Beta 2. It was useful for making large cities, but the generator had major issues with building placement and stuff, so I abandoned it after that beta. Well, here I am, crawling back to it and asking for forgiveness because this baby's had some updates since we've been gone. What was once just a simple procedural generator to place roads and buildings has evolved. It still does all that stuff too, but now this generator can also do other things like spawn driveways, lawn props, full interiors, a working subway system for fast traveling, actual street names with mailbox numbers, drivable cars, and every building comes fully equipped with destruction physics. All that with a customizable roadmap for me to have more control over the layout of the city. The building models that come default in the generator are a little flat in terms of color, but that's easily fixed with a simple material swap later to bring a little more depth to these models, but otherwise I think they're great. They're all optimized well and have enterable interiors with every building being ready for destruction by just checking a box. So I quickly built up a newer, significantly larger Central City than we've had previously. I slapped in a temporary Star Labs for reference that I'll switch out later, and I think the city just looks amazing. There are still limitations with the generator I used, obviously, with some roads and sidewalks being a little wonky, but I can absolutely fix those as I move forward with the game. The city is just so big, I'll actually need to find all the funky roads and sidewalks to actually fix them. But once I was done with the city, I still had just a blank white landscape underneath, which needed to change, so I swapped it out with a Brushify Auto Landscape material and just set the ground to a basic grass landscape. The auto material comes with actual foliage coming out of the ground, which unfortunately clipped through the roads and everything, so I removed it for now. I can go back in later and add it back in and paint around the roads and buildings, but I needed to save time as I really wanted to get episode 1 finished as soon as possible, and I can worry about adjusting the landscape later on. But with that, Central City is pretty much a done deal. It still needs a few material swaps on the buildings to make them more visually appealing, but otherwise the layout's there. I might tweak some things like street names or adjusting the subway stops to spread them out, but that's about it. I can also reuse this generator for every world in the Flash game, swapping out the building models for all other areas to keep the environments different looking, but otherwise speeding up world generation a ton. Moving on from Central City, another huge update was with the character models. While creating the cutscene for the boss fight with Dr. Light, I started working on lip-syncing dialogue, and it was kind of a pain in the ass. There were no good automatic options for me to use my custom character models, which meant I was kind of just stuck doing it by hand, and that didn't make me want to die at all, I swear. But after deciding that would be way too long of a process to do by hand for every cutscene in this game, I decided to make the switch to metahumans for my character model, since metahumans have a lot of support in Unreal Engine, including lip syncing options. Using the metahuman plugin, I was able to outline my character's faces with the mesh to metahuman pipeline included in the plugin to generate metahumans from my current models. It's actually a very cool process to be able to convert existing models into metahumans, taking just a few short minutes to do all in engine. Once you're finished, the newly generated metahuman will be available over at Metahuman Creator to give it a hairstyle, skin texture, so on. If you guys want a more detailed step-by-step guide on the mesh to metahuman process, I can absolutely make a video on it later, or you can just check out the documentation and other videos that already exist on it. It's pretty neat stuff. At first, I planned on swapping out the character models entirely, but I ran into issues with rigging my superhero costumes that I already made to the metahuman bodies. The weight groups were totally off, which basically just means the clothing wasn't moving correctly with the skeleton of the character. My choices were to go back to square one and redesign the supersuits to have them work better with the metahuman skeleton, or do what my wife suggested like a totally well-adjusted person would do and slice the heads off my character models to replace them with the metahuman heads while keeping the working bodies and costumes. That'd be pretty nuts to do though, right? So, after decapitating some beloved characters, my characters have more detailed faces, and I was able to make use of various lip sync options that were available to buy off the marketplace. At least I would have used those until Epic Games decided to be a bunch of overachievers and just include lip syncing in the newest version of Unreal Engine. Not complaining though, it saved me money. Yes, that's right, you heard that correctly. If you haven't seen this, check this out because this actually blew my mind a little bit when I first saw it. In the latest release of Unreal Engine, version 5.5 for anyone wondering, you can create what's called a metahuman performance asset, which lets you bring your metahumans to life in a ton of ways. One of which is by bringing an audio file into the engine and letting the engine automatically track the words in it. Just a simple drag and drop feature now enables any creator, big or small, to have a high quality lip sync with the click of a button. And I know it sounds like a damn sponsorship with how I'm hyping it up, but it's not, I'm just excited! This was particularly cool to find because a lot of effort is going into this game to have it feel like episodes of the show, so having lifelike facial animations for close-ups and cutscenes really does make a huge difference in bringing this game to the next level in my opinion. Plus, I can now churn out the cutscenes much faster with the animations for the faces being done automatically like this. The only issue I had at first was this feature is only available in Unreal 5.5, with the Flash game being developed in 5.4. I could just update the game to 5.5 and hope none of the assets I already have an issue with it. Not a big deal, or we can just do the easy option, have a blank project in 5.5 that we use to output all the metahuman performances and migrate them back to the Flash game in version 5.4. While the process to capture the lip syncing might be locked to 5.5, the normal animation files that come out of it are not, and can easily be dragged back to older versions of Unreal Engine for use. With all the support coming out of Unreal Engine for metahumans, I definitely think making the switch to them was ultimately the best decision for the Flash game. Let me know what you guys think of the new looks for the characters and their animations with the lip syncing. They're kinda creepy when you're making them, but they look really good. But now that we've talked about the new looks for the characters, let's talk about how I'm putting them to use. Clapper wrote us a good story. Hell, it's a great story. Out of all the fan rewrites of The Flash, this is definitely one of them. I'm kidding, it's great and we love Clapper, but once Clapper turned over his Clapster piece of a story to me, my job was to take the words and adapt them as best I can into the story of the Flash game. One issue I ran into was focusing too much on the words of his script without paying attention to the style of the cinematics I was making. While working on the Dr. Light cutscene, I had everything working. Random bank lady was getting robbed, Dr. Light was doing Dr. Light things, the works. The problem was I forgot to make it feel like part of the show. I didn't edit it to be like it was part of the CW. Now normally that means dragging it out for too long and tank it by the last season, but this was just one cutscene, so that wasn't really an option. Instead, I did what I did for the intro cutscene when you start a new game and mimicked the editing style of the early episodes of the show. Seeing as how this is a fan rewrite of the show, it felt like the best option to make the game feel authentic. Unfortunately, that meant cutting like 2 lines of dialogue, but I think the end result just flows a lot better, and it's not like this is the only time we're going to hear from Dr. Light in the game. Just gonna drop that little hint right there, hope you don't mind. But let me know what you guys think. Does mimicking the style of a show work for a fan game? I'd love to get some feedback. Either drop a comment, or maybe I can post a poll in my community section or something on what you all think looks best. Or, you know, vibe it to me, like a true fan. But after piecing together the bank's interior, reworking the cutscene to better match the show, and sawing the heads off my characters, we have ourselves a boss battle, suckers! A simple transition from the cutscene later, and we're in it. I won't cover much of making the boss fight in this video because I've already touched on developing Dr. Light so much already in previous updates, but she's here and she tries to hit you. That's sort of the point of a fight. The fight will still need tweaking to make everything balanced and run without glitches, but overall a good start to what is ultimately a good game. Some would even say a great game. I didn't say it, but others have definitely maybe said it about the game, probably. From here, I just need to start working on adding the pedestrian system for Central City and a random crime event system that I've already started working on, and we should have a decently playable experience on our hands. The best part about it is most of the work I've done on the characters, both playable and non-playable, is designed for me to be able to sort of copy and paste to generate new characters. Obviously they'll all act different and look different, but the basic building blocks for creating new bosses and characters is already there, and I just need to adjust things with every new character to give them their own bit of flavor to stand out. So hopefully all this preliminary work I've been doing on all these different things will help speed development up as I finally turn the page to episode 2. But thanks so much for watching. If you like this, then definitely leave me a like and tell me about it in the comments down below. I appreciate any feedback y'all have, and the engagement helps out the channel a ton. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.